The top Russian animated hit will now receive a global showcase. Netflix is acquiring 2 seasons of Masha and the Bear and will continue airing the animated series in more than 100 countries. So now Russian Masha will reach not only children in Russia or Ukraine, it will be shown in the USA, Canada, Latin America, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Ukraine, in response, is demanding sanctions. More than 50 British MPs are asking the government to investigate whether the broadcast can be stopped. And just one episode of this simple cartoon already has over 4.6 billion views on YouTube. And here's the paradox. When Solovyov shouts in the studio, everyone understands that it's propaganda. When a little girl in a pink scarf runs around a friendly bear, it may seem like it's just a cartoon, but that's exactly how soft power works. It doesn't always come through political speeches. On the contrary, it often comes through the background and repetition. In this video, we analyze how Russia's main hit gained access to a global audience through Netflix. Why is Ukraine demanding sanctions, and how does a Russian children's product receive global protection under the guise of childhood innocence? According to Deadline, Netflix has acquired the 8th and 9th seasons of Masha and the Bear and extended the rights to previous seasons and spin-offs. Let me explain for those who don't use streaming services. Netflix is basically a huge online cinema. A person pays for a subscription, opens the app, and watches media from any country in the world. And now we're talking about more than 100 territories where this Russian cartoon with harmful narratives will be broadcast, including the USA, Canada, Latin America, parts of Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and other regions. And when such a service includes a Russian children's product in its international package, it sort of removes some of the toxicity and presents it to a global audience as if it's normal content. That's why this is a conversation about how the largest platforms still often fail to see the difference between Russian content and Russian cultural influence. Because many people will say it's just a cartoon that gives parents 7 minutes of peace and quiet. Even the production studio Animaccord denies any accusations of propaganda. Although it pays taxes to the Russian Federation's budget and, despite Cypriot structures, maintains ties with Russia through ownership, management, and intellectual property rights. At the same time, company representatives claim that this is a private business that has not received any state funding and that the series supposedly relies on universal themes of friendship, kindness, and imagination. But then why does the Center for Countering Disinformation under the National Security and Defense Council call the animated series a tool of Russian soft power? Why are British MPs paying attention to Soviet military symbols in certain episodes? Why does the Estonian Minister of Foreign Affairs talk about pro-Kremlin and militaristic messages in children's content? And why are there renewed calls in Ukraine for sanctions against the Animaccord studio? The cartoon itself functions as a Russian brand for children. It's something cute, familiar, translated into many languages, and available on the largest platforms. While an adult viewer might still be able to recognize a Russian product, a child only sees a kind bear and a hyperactive little girl. The same YouTube channel for Masha and the Bear has surpassed 60 million subscribers, and one of its most famous episodes has over 4.6 billion views. The Guardian calls the series one of the most popular shows in YouTube history. But why does Masha and the Bear even work? There's no brilliant animation here, but the series has a simple format. Short episodes, bright colors, lots of movement, and minimal dialogue. Its Russian origins are hidden behind the fairy tale, humor, and translations. According to Detective Media, the Ukrainian language YouTube channel Masha and the Bear garnered over 800 million views in 2025 and topped the ranking of children's channels in Ukraine. The channel lists Ukraine as its location. The content is dubbed in Ukrainian, but it is a product of Russian origin. The Center for Countering Disinformation claims that the animated series promotes a positive image of Russia through the character of the bear, mocks other nations through Masha's behavior, and also normalizes Soviet symbols and military themes. British MPs have also taken note of certain scenes. Masha appears in outfits that they associate with Soviet military symbolism, including a tank helmet and a peaked cap. These resemble the uniforms of Soviet border guards or the NKVD. And so Soviet imagery is presented as something funny or neutral. The bear is always big, strong, patient, and kind. Masha is chaotic but almost always goes unpunished. Conflicts are not resolved through dialogue but often through force, noise, persistence, and because I want it that way. For a child, this becomes a model of the world. And again, this model has Russian origins, global distribution, billions of views, and now a new boost thanks to Netflix. So the question is, why is the Russian symbolic world still being sold to children as a safe, universal fairy tale? In Ukraine, there are demands for sanctions against the production studio Animaccord. According to Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation, updated analytics on the new episodes have been submitted along with a recommendation to impose sanctions. He explains, sanctions would provide legal grounds to appeal to YouTube for blocking the content in Ukraine and to speak to Netflix in legal terms. Moreover, a wave of posts about canceling Netflix subscriptions has appeared in Ukrainian threads. However, a counter-argument has also emerged there. If the Ukrainian market suddenly declines, the platform may invest less in Ukrainian dubbing and the purchase of local content. That's why targeted pressure is needed here. Sanctions against rights holders, blocking monetization, a public stance from the state, international appeals, working with platforms, and promoting Ukrainian alternatives. Because there is no such thing as an empty space on children's YouTube. If there are no Ukrainian fairy tales, Ukrainian animation, Ukrainian heroes, and proper promotion there, someone else will take that place. And very often, for some reason, that someone else happens to have a Russian studio, Russian rights, and a remarkable ability to pretend to be just a cute little bear. Write in the comments where you see the line between children's content and cultural propaganda. Subscribe to Focus, because next we'll break down why Ukrainian content is still losing in the algorithms. Like this video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming analyses.